This is the Blaisin podcast, amplifying disability perspective one story at a time. Today is Wednesday, April 9th. I'm Blaise Bryant. About a month ago, on March 13th, I spoke with longtime disability rights activist Julie Farrar, who is a very good friend of mine. We covered a few things: advocacy around New York's consumer-directed personal assistance program, her attending President Trump's State of the Union address, and the Capitol crawl, which was done on March 12th, 1990, to help the Americans with Disabilities Act pass. Julie, thanks so much for joining me here on the show, and let's get into our conversation here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, let's actually start with what happened earlier this week when you and a few other wheelchair users who are using New York's consumer-directed personal assistance program, you blocked escalators because our governor here in New York is frankly taking services away, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it wasn't done transparently. It totally destroys and upends a system that is supposed to allow disabled people to control who touches our bodies.
Right.
It's that simple. And consumer-directed care, the consumer-directed model was created here in New York. New Yorkers should be very, very proud of that. And I believe that Pat Figueroa and Denise Figueroa were a part of that original putting together of the consumer-directed care program. And I believe that having the ILCs involved is critical because you have peer support. You have, if you're newly disabled or you're aging into disability or you need services, you need to find your closest independent living center because you will find people who will help you navigate a very, very complicated, complex system that allows us to survive. And I'm changing the phrase, it's not a safety net, especially with what's going on at the top. And I think this is a perfect example of this, where she, behind closed doors, without the comptrollers the comptroller being able to look over the contract, she basically, in my opinion, sold the Consumer Directed Care Program to Public Partnerships LLC, which we shouldn't forget stands for Limited Liability Company or Corporation. And they are a corporation and they are owned by a hedge fund. And I cannot tell you how frustrated and terrified and just it causes so much anxiety. The commodification in our lives as disabled people is just, it's beyond the pale. It is the wheelchair that I have that has never worked since I got it is owned by Permobile. Permobile is owned by an international company conglomerate, and they just bought Brawnability, which modifies our vans. And what Governor Kathy Doge Hochul did was, behind the scenes, cut a deal to create one fiscal intermediary for 750,000 people, because including our workers and ourselves, it's so many people that it doesn't seem feasible. Part of what made and makes consumer direct work is the fact that you have the independent living centers who are able to help guide people through. There's a lot of requirements that you have to meet. And one of the things that we noticed as well was the managed care organizations who stole all the money that we fought for 3 years with Caring Majority. We got raises for our folks, and a huge chunk of that money just went into the pockets of the investors for the private
For
health insurance
PPL. Yeah.
industry. Yeah. So it's just this public-private partnership uh, bullshit. I don't know if you have to um,
You're fine.
bleep that, but all it is doing is giving money to people that don't give a damn about what they've purchased, about the company. Their goal is to kind of put it out of business and consolidate into something else. And I have worked with PPL in the past, and it's exactly the same as what I'm experiencing now, where you call and they say, due to the high volume of callers, we will call you back. And I leave my phone number. And of course, yesterday I was actually being interviewed, and that's when they called me back. So
Naturally. Yeah, that's just the way the world works, right?
yes, but there's this assumption. I mean, even if they were as bad as Comcast and say we'll come any times between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. on this date, that would be better than just calling back. And people calling back didn't necessarily have the answers to my questions, which I can't leave on the voicemail. There's no voicemail. And then they try to refer me to somebody else who is going to call me back. It is a cluster hump. It is a call center. Right now, it's a poorly run call center that is handling the transition right now.
Right. And when you look at some of what the New York State Department of Health has put out, and they say X number, and I think really the best way to put it is X number because we really don't know have either quote started or completed the transition. Have they started it or have they completed it? Which one is it? And I mean, the guess is as good as anyone's possible guess. So why wouldn't it, given that sort of communication, be as vague as it is with your experience, right?
Yes, I have now encountered two people who have completed the process and are good to go. And
You have
everybody
a
else is
hundred and some
pending.
odd thousand.
Everybody else that I've talked to, like myself, is pending. And it's very frustrating. And they actually, yesterday, my FI sent a letter to one of my aides telling him that I had terminated him. And it was just that he needed to do his physical again. But so I told him, I said, you're going to get a letter saying that I terminated you, but that is not the case. And, we kind of joked about it. I said, if I was going to terminate you, I'd do it on Facebook so everybody could see. But that's a lie. And it's frustrating that there's no answers about who are going to be the vendors because the vendors have been terrible. A company that I probably can't name that I work with as an FI, they've gotten so big, but it's always all about the paperwork, and there is absolutely no accountability when something messes up on their side. And it's very frustrating. The whole process is frustrating. And then when
Mhm.
I sign my MOU with them, what I'm told is, okay, now go online and finish the process. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't help anyone in any
No.
scenario. And imagine what would have happened if your aide got this letter before you were able to say anything about it.
Right. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, just right.
it's
What would have happened?
it's absolutely deplorable what they're doing because our home care workers they work from paycheck to paycheck, and
Yeah.
they should be able to put a roof over their own heads, feed their own family. They should have, like you said, a good quality of life. That not this minimum standards. They should be able to have the means to enjoy life, to go to the movies, to order pizza, whatever people do. But um, if people are not paid for one pay period, they could lose their home because they live from paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of people are so frightened about the change that they're dropping out. They don't even want to be a part of the process. It's just heartbreaking.
Yes, it is. Politico reported earlier this week 30,000 people who were using CDPA have switched to traditional care, being at the mercy of when people are able to come to them because they feel there's greater security.
Yep, it's strangers coming into their home, and the rules are completely different. They have to, there are things that they can't do. They're not supposed to bring in your mail because that's outside. My daughter and my sister who moved here they basically saved my life. As you know, I got very ill during COVID and I was in the hospital with sepsis. And I I got a bill because I still was under, I still had insurance with my employer. Just the hospitalization on its own, nothing else, was $110,000 for 10
Wow.
days in the hospital. And I got a really good infectious disease doc. Bless her heart, not in the Southern way. And when I am getting ill, they can do blood work and I can go into the radiology department, have them put in a PICC line, and then I get 10 days of IV antibiotics at home. And as of March, I have not been in the hospital for 2 years.
Wow. What did you have to do to get that really good infectious disease doctor?
Um, I think I called around actually. And this is I don't know how to explain the fear that the disability community has that I don't know that the aging community has yet, but we saw during COVID that we are truly expendable. I have friends who use ventilators to breathe very successfully, and they were contacted by the government being told that their ventilators that keep them alive, that keep them breathing, could be taken away from them because the medical model sees our quality of life as so poor. And I was very lucky that I I had an appointment with this doctor named Dr. Keel, and she's this little Austrian woman, so I think she's kind of intimidating. She looks like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus, but people listen to her because of her accent, I think, and she takes no guff. And she came to me in the hospital at Albany Med for my appointment because she was very close by. And we were able to figure out a different way to do things so I didn't have to go to the emergency room and sit next to anti-vaxxer Coffee McCofferson who had COVID, and endanger my life knowing that I would be the last person to be treated because my quality of life is considered to be poor. And I I was in Albany Med. I had no food, no water, no nothing for 36 hours. It was interesting because I even watched this webinar on I have something called oh no, I forgot what it's called. But anyway, I have something that's caused by using antibiotics inappropriately. And they finally get me back to a room, and and my sister and my parents were on the phone. And the hospitalist comes in. This is the first person I've seen. No IV fluids, nothing. And I start crying. And she says, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm afraid I'm going to die." And she pulled out the DNR immediately and talked to me about, if they tried to do CPR, they could break your ribs. It's not very successful. Told me all these things, and my sister and my parents were on the phone and they were screaming at her, "No DNR." So I was transferred to another hospital, but I believe that if I had been pressured into signing a DNR, I would have just laid there until I died of sepsis. They wouldn't have treated me. And luckily, in the window between being transferred to the other hospital, which definitely saved my life, this doctor comes in, infectious disease doctor comes in, and yeah, and she's like, you shouldn't be in the hospital with a hospital acquired infection. And oh, it's called ESBL. I just remembered. And so she was able to keep me out of the hospital by letting me do the IV antibiotics at home. My daughter started doing it when she was 17, and she wasn't old enough to be a paid caregiver, but but numerous times, Elizabeth and Jade, my daughters, and Snow have been able to administer IV drugs to keep me out of the hospital. And there's no way with a traditional home care agency that you would get that kind of option.
1 billion%. And it's just amazing. I mean, even though I knew parts of the story because of how close of friends we've been over the years, but just hearing it again and through the lens of just talking to you and interviewing you here, it just, it's just one of those things, Julie, that I just am more blown away every time by the amount of neglect that existed within the hospital, and B, thank goodness you had your parents and someone else there on the phone who were screaming at this hospitalist because they, no exaggeration, saved your life.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Julie Farrar is with me here on Blaisin Access Weekly. And let's go from one mess to another, shall we?
All right.
Let's talk about how you were down in Washington, D.C. last week. You were Congressman Paul Tonko's guest. You did a virtual press conference, which unfortunately I didn't get a chance to listen to, and I've not been able to find a recording for that, by the way.
I'll try to find one.
Thanks. And you got to witness the 47th president's address to Congress and Al Green standing
Yeah.
up in the middle of it and getting kicked out. So what was all that like?
It it was horrifying. I I was really honored to be able to go, and I'm very honored that Representative Tonko chose me to represent people on Medicaid who could die if we don't have our Medicaid anymore. People don't realize that Medicaid pays for all of the things that private insurance companies won't pay for. And I was there and I was wearing my turquoise rainbow Atlantis Adapt Free Our People shirt. We were in the nosebleed seats. I kind of felt like I described it to people as kind of the Wilkes Booth Lincoln box. It was that we were at the very, very top, and there was room for one person using a wheelchair. And
That's
when that's it. And when
one
I got,
freaking person.
yep. And when I got there was already somebody sitting there, a wonderful guy that came from New Jersey, representing the DD councils. And I sat, they squeezed me in next to him. And then they actually had two manual wheelchairs shoved in behind me. Two, so two women, sorry. And one was not a little girl. It was a 12-year-old, very tiny 12-year-old in a manual wheelchair. And another woman from Massachusetts was in a manual chair behind us. And additionally behind us, there were two guys that I am convinced were private security because they weren't wearing badges, they weren't wearing patches, they weren't, there was nothing to identify them as being personnel or being security
Right. Secret
at the
Service or
Capitol.
any of that.
They
Yep.
were not, yeah. And somebody said, well, was it Secret Service? I'm like, no, Secret Service always looks exactly like Secret Service. They look like Men in Black. It's kind of ridiculous. But but these guys were standing there and they were armed, and I was just nervous with their presence. I had not seen that. And but I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and I don't know how to describe it properly, but I'm gonna call it the most Hitler-esque display of fealty to Elon Musk and Emperor Cheeto Head that I have that I mean it looked like something out of a rally, a white supremacist rally. It was so ugly and so it was palpable that the energy in that room was was directed towards completing their goals, which if they do this, they're gonna kill a lot of specifically disabled people. They've destroyed the Department of Education. We were blamed for planes crashing. Okay, at the very beginning of this, when there was the plane helicopter crash in the
Yeah.
Delaware
Yeah. Where
three times.
68 people died.
Yes,
We were
and
blamed three times and without any evidence whatsoever.
right, three times he said it was disabled people who caused the crash, and that tells you how he feels about us.
Yeah.
So it
When
was.
I heard that, Julie, that right then and there,
Mhm.
I said to myself, this guy is not my president.
Yep, yep, yep. And it's not a matter of difference of opinion.
No.
Absolutely not. It is it is punishing the poor who don't have a safety net. We have a spider web. We have a spider web, and there is a venomous spider that's just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And it's like, oh, right now my van door won't close. I had trouble with my wheelchair that's unbelievable. My wheelchair has maybe worked not consecutively, but for about 2 months, if you piece all of the time it was working together. All
Mm.
of my medical supplies are paid for through Medicaid. He just stripped any ability to enforce the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We are a target. We are useless eaters. And I'm terrified. I really am.
It's awful what's happening. And there are so many people with disabilities who are fighting the fight, but there are truthfully more that are not fighting the fight for whatever reason, whether it's they're in a cave and don't come out of it. And I don't mean to be critical when I say that, but like, how are you not doing something about this? There
I
is, go ahead.
I believe it has always been that way, that a very loud minority, very loud, the largest minority, but a small percentage of us get involved. And I feel like it is my responsibility to represent the people that are not there. They can't come to the table for all kinds of reasons. We are going to be at the Capitol uh, it seems like every year it's almost constant when they're trying to pass the budget, but we're going to be there to fight for everybody. And being so overwhelmed, seeing what's going on in the news, or being so detached that you don't understand the consequences of what is being done, I get that. I get that. The They just are looking for any way to blame poor people and take away, think about it, they're taking away what is it, $880 billion from
Yeah, over the
Medicaid?
course, yeah, over the course of a decade. That's
Right.
88 billion a year. That
Yes.
is in comparison to the New York State's $250 million budget, that's about a third.
Yeah.
If you look at it compared to New York City's budget, it's about 25 billion short of it.
Yeah. It's disgusting, and it's intentional, and there are so many people that can't get out of bed, Blaze. They
I
can't get
know.
out of bed because they don't have aids. And right now, it's almost impossible to hire somebody because we don't know what the hell is happening. We can't guarantee anything because we're not getting answers.
Right. It's just absolutely pathetic. And I mean the other side of it too, I shouldn't say the other side, but another part of this is the fact that there are so many ways that people, even if you can't get out of bed, can take action, make those phone calls to your representatives or send those emails. I mean, there's really, in my opinion, no excuse why, if you are a person with a disability who's impacted by this stuff and wants
Well,
to
you are
change
you are
something,
impacted. It's not
Right.
if, you are
Well,
impacted
right.
by, yeah.
Right. Right. So there's no excuse why people aren't doing anything about it.
I have to say, after going to that address, and yes, I saw Representative Al Green, and he was not dragged out, but he was forcibly removed.
Yeah.
And and yeah, he stood up for Medicaid. Medicaid and Social Security are being slashed. And he stood up for us. I so absolutely appreciate it. And he was just ridiculed and attacked by Marjorie Taylor Greene in her red Trump hat. I asked if I could wear a red beret for Medicaid Matters, and they said, no, you can't wear hats. She's in there with her. Yeah, so she was in there with her, I don't even know what those horrible hats say, but MAGA hat. And they were shaming him as he walked out. And they were doing that na 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 hey hey goodbye. So it's a joke to them. It's a joke to them.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is what I'll say. I was very discouraged, disillusioned. I think, I don't know if you saw my Facebook post, and I'm just like exactly what you said, all hands on deck. I bring my shiny, happy ass and face to the protests. Like, we've protested together, and I try
Many
to bring
times.
this happy energy to things, and it was gone. I'm like, I'm not messing around. This is horrific. It's Hitler-esque. It's surreal, but it's real. And but then going to the Capitol and protesting with my fellow siblings who will be affected by this, and protesting with other siblings who are facing other similar issues. I work with the Poor People's Campaign and Caring Majority, and I also work with the folks that are working on prison reform because they understand the commodification of human beings. When you put someone in an institution, you make money off of them. If it's a nursing home, you make money off of them. It's a jail that you make money off of them. A prison, you make money off of them. Private companies make money off of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Ugh, it's just all just such a mess, and it's so unfortunate. And people really need to be doing whatever it is they can. And I firmly believe if we all do what we are able to do, we can fight this stuff.
Yes.
And speaking of obstacles, Julie Farrar, who's
Yes.
with me here on Blaisin Access Weekly, I want to end on a happy-ish note, talking about the Capitol Crawl. The 35th anniversary of the Capitol Crawl was on March 12th of this year. So the Capitol Crawl was on March 12th of 1990.
Yes.
I actually have a clip here. I want to play this for you from, and you can, I just want you to listen to this for a few seconds, and then I'll,
Okay.
I'll pause it and tell me what you remember from the Capitol Crawl. Here's Jennifer Keelan, who
Yes.
was 9 years old,
Yep.
got out of her wheelchair and crawled up the steps.
Everybody didn't want me to. It was supposed to be like an all adult thing. And they're like, no, 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 Jennifer, you're too young. You can't do it. And I turned to Wade Blank and I said, I need to climb the steps. I want to climb the steps. And Wade said, go for it. So I got out of my wheelchair and I started climbing. Well, the next thing I know, I've got 50 cameras on me and I've got mics all over me, and it's like the hottest day, the month of March, and I'm just dripping with sweat, and I'm saying to myself, not only am I going to do this for myself, but I'm going to do it for my friend, Kenny, who died a couple of months earlier, and I was going to do it, for the future.
I know Jennifer very well. We took a picture together with like her in her 30s maybe and me in my 40s. I used to be pretty tiny, and my special skill, which apparently I still have, is finding the pocket of opportunity and sneaking into that space. I I sat next to Jennifer and I scooted up on my butt. I scooted up each stair and I was just like, "You can do it. Come on, Jennifer, you can do it." And we had water for her and it was just an amazing moment to be able to witness and be a part of.
For sure. And she, like you, is from Denver. And in the clip, she said how she was going to pull out a pamphlet and hand it to the politicians, but it was the image of her, this 9-year-old girl,
Yep.
crawling up step by step that really hit home for them.
Yep. Yep. And it was the perfect intentional storm that caused change because we had people like Justin Dart, who was Republican on the inside, pushing, and we had a lot of people working behind the scenes. John Sununu, we kept saying, "Don't look at the numbers, don't look at the numbers," but John Sununu was saying this is going to be too expensive. The quite a few so-called religious organizations, I would call them Christian nationalist religious organizations, but they were like, well, we don't have to comply because of separation of church and state.
Hmm.
And so there's all this fighting going on. And it took Jennifer Keelan and a bunch of us crawling up the steps to the Capitol to symbolize the lack of access we have in our country. And I also have been thinking a lot about Judy Heumann, who we claim is a New Yorker. And I did see they had a picture of her up for women's to celebrate Women's Month, whatever, while we still can.
Women's History Month, yes.
Women's History Month. And I just remember very clearly there was some celebration, like the 10th or 15th or whatever celebration of the passage of the ADA. And she said, if you want me to say thank you for the ability to use a public bathroom, I'm not going to do that. We had a long way to come and we fought, fought, fought. You know, the 504 sit-ins were the longest occupation of a federal building.
Yeah,
And
20 days.
yep, I feel like that might be what's going to happen soon is occupation, except for all those buildings have been sold by Elon Musk. But um, we are strong, we are mighty, we are powerful. We are the largest minority in the United States, and people are rapidly joining, and we welcome you. We want you to know that you are still strong and powerful, and your disability is a part of you, and that actually we are here to let you know that you are just as powerful, maybe more so. You have a community that will support you. I keep saying that our superpower is our community, and it really is. So I think we just need to keep reminding people of this.
Yeah. And when you do join us, come fight with us. You don't
Yes.
need to be the loudest voice in the space. You don't need to be, really, you don't need to say anything. Just show up and do what you can. Or if you're not able to do anything in person, again, it's telling your story because really nothing, and I mean nothing, in this world is more important than your story.
Yep, absolutely. There are real people behind what is happening. And when you show up and you share your story, it's so powerful. It's a very empowering thing to be able to share from your perspective how you feel about what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, Julie, I could talk with you about this stuff forever, but neither of us have that kind of time.
Nope. I'm
So
going to be calling people to try to get them down there. We'll be there the 10th. We'll be there the 24th. We will be there. So let people know if they want to show up, come on down and meet us at 11 o'clock at the I Love New York sign. We'll be there on Monday, and then we will be there the week after for until it's over.
Yes.
until the Doge lady sings.
I love that until the Doge lady sings. That's the perfect way to wrap this up, Julie. And as always, thanks a million, and I'll see you there.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Blaze.
What did you think of our chat? Let me know on Facebook at Blaisin Shows. That's BLAISIN Shows. The new website is up and running. It's still the same web address, blaisinshows.com. That's BLAISIN shows.com. Go check it out. There are a few new things. A new donate button where you can support the show. A few ways where you can pay. And any dollar you're able to donate is super appreciated. There's also, if you want to be on the show, a contact form. You can fill out whatever topic you want to choose. Fill that out for the Blaisin Access podcast, and I'll be in touch with you. And there's much more, so go check out the new website. Again, that's blaisinshows.com, BLAISIN shows.com. Transcripts are AI generated and are not perfect, but they will give you a baseline sense as to what I'm talking about here on the show. Tune in next week for another episode of the Blaisin Access podcast. I'm Blaise Bryant. Thank you for listening to the Blaisin Access podcast, amplifying disability perspective one story at a time. Have a great day.